Welcome to another powerful and life-changing video on the Path of Truth channel. I'm truly honored to have you here as we embark on a journey that is not meant for everyone, but only for those who have been chosen for something extraordinary. This message, this moment, is for you, the ones who have been set apart to receive divine revelations and to witness the power of the Almighty in ways that others cannot comprehend. So take a deep breath and open your heart, because what is about to unfold is a truth that will stir your spirit, awaken your soul, and ignite the warrior inside you. If you are ready to receive this truth, I encourage you to listen with a heart full of faith and expectancy. As we face the giants in our lives, we are reminded of the biblical story of David and Goliath. David, a young shepherd, was not afraid to confront the mighty Goliath because he understood that the battle was not his but God's. In 1 Samuel 17:47, David declares, "The battle is the Lord's, and he will give all of you into our hands." David's confidence didn't come from his own strength or abilities, but from the belief that God was with him and would deliver him from the giant. This truth applies to us today. No matter how big the challenges we face may seem, the battle is not ours alone. We have a God who goes before us, who fights on our behalf, and who is faithful to fulfill his promises. In our moments of doubt, we can take courage in this story. Just as God delivered David from the hands of the giant, he will deliver us. The circumstances may appear impossible, but with God, all things are possible. The giants in our lives may stand tall, but we serve a God who is even greater, whose power and love will see us through every trial. This is not just a story from the past. It is a living testimony of God's power which is still at work in our lives today. Before we begin, I would like to ask you to do something simple yet powerful. Please take a moment to comment 99 below this video and subscribe to the Path of Truth channel if you haven't already. This small act will help you stay connected with this journey and ensure that you never miss the messages that are meant for you. Let your spirit align with the truth being shared today, and may it transform you in ways that words alone cannot express. Now let's dive into this message, one that is meant for the chosen ones, and let it resonate deeply. You may find yourself surprised by what I'm about to share, but trust me when I say that it is essential for you to remain silent and focused on what is coming your way. This is not a message for everyone, but for those who have been chosen, it will speak directly to your heart. If you do not believe in Christ, this video may not resonate with your soul, and that is okay. You are free to turn it off, for this message may not vibrate with your spirit. However, if you are truly a chosen one, you will fully understand every word I am about to explain. Imagine standing at the edge of an impossible sea with no way forward and enemies closing in behind you. You might have felt that same pressure before, trapped between fear and faith, facing battles that seem too overwhelming to fight. Have you ever wondered if God sees your struggle? Have you ever felt the weight of the unknown, wondering if he will show up for you in the fire, in the storm, or in the silence? If you have ever asked yourself these questions, I am here to tell you today that God not only sees your struggle, but he specializes in breaking through the impossible. This is not just a story of distant miracles from the past. This is about your life, your Red Sea, your Jericho, and your moments in the fire. Chosen one, open your heart and receive this truth. What God is about to do in your life will defy every limit, every wall, and every obstacle. Are you ready to witness the power of the Almighty? Are you prepared to see what happens when the impossible meets the power of God? I stand before you today not to tell you what you already know, but to set a fire in your spirit, a fire that cannot be extinguished. I am here to awaken the warrior within you, to reignite the sleeping giant of faith that lies inside you. You are not called to live an ordinary life. You are not here to merely survive your struggles. You are here to conquer, to thrive, and to walk through every obstacle with a power that cannot be explained. You are here to become a living, breathing testimony of the truth that with God, all things are possible. The God who parted the Red Sea, who crumbled the walls of Jericho, and who walked through the fire with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego is the same God who stands with you today. He is not bound by the limitations of this world. He is the God who looks at the impossible, smiles, and declares, "This is where I do my greatest work." He is the God who can transform your trials into triumphs, turn your deserts into highways, and convert every barrier into a blessing. Now, I want to take you on a journey. I want to take you through stories of faith, courage, and the unshakable truth that God does not work in conventional ways. He doesn't need human logic to perform miracles. He simply needs us to obey, to trust, and to believe. Are you ready to walk forward in faith, even when the way seems impossible? Let's begin with the story of Moses and the Israelites in Exodus 14. They were trapped at the edge of the Red Sea, with no way to move forward and Pharaoh's army closing in behind them. Can you imagine the fear and panic they must have felt? Yet, in the midst of this terrifying situation, God told Moses to stretch out his hand over the sea. And in that moment, the impossible became possible. The waters parted, and the Israelites walked through on dry ground. You may be standing at your own Red Sea right now, feeling trapped and helpless. Perhaps you see no way forward, and danger seems to be closing in from all sides. But I want to tell you today that God specializes in creating paths where none exist. The God who parted the Red Sea can make a way for you where there seems to be none. Your Red Sea might be financial ruin, a broken relationship, or a health crisis, but hear me when I say this. God's ability to part the seas in your life is not just a story from the past, it is a promise for your present. Hold on to this truth with everything you have, for it is the fire that will keep you steady when doubt tries to creep in. Consider the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in Daniel 3. These men were thrown into a fiery furnace because they refused to worship a false god. They told the king, "Our God whom we serve is able to deliver us, but even if he does not, we will not serve your gods." This was a faith that defied fear, a faith that transcended circumstances. And what happened? God showed up in the fire. The fourth man was with them, not a hair on their heads was singed. This story teaches us that true faith does not demand guarantees from God. True faith rests in God's character. It trusts that God is with us, whether he delivers us from the fire or walks with us through it. Are you willing to trust God even when you don't see a way out? Are you ready to declare, "God, I trust you, not because you always change my circumstances, but because you are with me in them"? Let's now look at the story of Jericho in Joshua 6. The walls of Jericho were an impenetrable fortress, standing between the Israelites and the Promised Land. God didn't ask them to fight with weapons or siege engines. Instead, he asked for obedience and faith. He told them to march around the walls and trust that he would do the rest. To anyone watching, it must have seemed absurd. Yet, on the seventh day, after they had obeyed and marched, they shouted, and the walls came crashing down. God doesn't need human logic to perform miracles. He simply needs us to trust and obey. You may be facing your own Jericho today, an obstacle so large that it seems impossible to overcome. But remember, God is not asking you to fight this battle with your own. He is asking you to walk in faith, to trust, to believe. When you do, those walls will fall. Just as God brought down the walls of Jericho, he can bring down the walls in your life. We walk by faith, not by sight. In 2 Corinthians 5:7, we are reminded that faith is not about what we can see, but about trusting in what God can do, even when the way seems unclear. And just like Peter, one of Jesus' closest disciples, you may feel unworthy of God's calling due to past mistakes or failures. But God does not see you for who you were. He sees you for who you can become. He can transform you just as he transformed Peter from a fearful man into the rock upon which the church would be built. God does not call the qualified. He qualifies the called. Are you ready to be transformed? Are you willing to let go of your excuses and step into the calling that God has placed on your life? There is no force on earth that can stop what God has declared over your life. He is a God of new beginnings, and when he declares a new thing, nothing can stand in his way. In Isaiah 43:19, God says, "Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert." If you are in a wilderness right now, feeling lost and desperate for direction, God is telling you, do you not perceive it? I am making a way. When God speaks, no force on earth can stop his plans for you. He can bring rivers to your desert, hope to the hopeless, and light to your darkness. This is the God we serve, a God who specializes in the impossible. And he is with you today, standing beside you, ready to break through every barrier and bring you to a place of miraculous transformation. There is a stirring truth that God never leaves us in the wilderness. No matter how dry or desolate it may seem, he has a divine purpose for each of us, a reason why we walk through the fires, why we face the storms. We are chosen not by chance, but by design. His hand is at work even when we can't see it, and his plans for us go beyond what we can imagine. When we find ourselves in the deepest, darkest places, it is not the end. It is the beginning of God's miraculous work in our lives. It is in the valleys, in the desolation, that God's glory shines the brightest, and where we, his chosen ones, can rise with a faith so deep it moves mountains. In moments when we are surrounded by chaos, when the world tells us we are defeated, it is then that we are called to rise up, not in our own strength, but in his. Let that sink in, chosen one. In your weakness, his power is made perfect. The world may say you are finished, that your dreams are dead, but God sees a different story. He sees the garden in the wasteland, the streams in the desert, and he has already set the path before you. Don't let the setbacks, the failures, or the disappointments define who you are. Your story is still being written, and it's one of divine restoration, healing, and breakthrough. The very things you've walked through, the things that tried to break you, are the things that God is using to shape you for his glory. You are not forgotten. You are not overlooked. God knows your name and he sees your struggles. He sees the tears that no one else knows about, the heartache that you've carried in silence. And he is telling you right now, chosen one, that you are not alone. He is walking beside you every step of the way. When you feel like giving up, when the weight of the world feels too much to bear, remember that God is in the business of turning the impossible into the inevitable. What seems like the end is just the beginning of the miracles he has prepared for you. It is in your brokenness that he can pour out his healing. It is in your weakness that his strength is revealed. Trust in this, trust in him. Now, I want you to pause and reflect on this for a moment. Close your eyes and imagine, if you will, a God who holds the universe in his hands, yet has time for you. He sees you. He cares for you. You are not a random occurrence. You are not an accident. You are chosen. Your life has meaning, and there is a divine purpose for every trial, every storm, and every season you walk through. Do not underestimate the power of the journey you are on. Every challenge you face is not meant to defeat you. It is meant to position you for God's miraculous breakthrough. He has never called you to walk in defeat. He has called you to walk in victory, and victory comes from standing firm in faith, even when the road ahead seems impossible. You may have faced rejection, disappointment, and failure, but those things are stepping stones. Those experiences have shaped you, honed you, and made you stronger than you ever imagined. You are a testimony to the power of God working through your life. You are living proof that he makes the impossible possible, that he can take the broken and restore it, that he can take the hopeless and bring new life. Do not let the enemy lie to you. You are not defined by your failures. You are defined by the Creator who made you, who calls you his own, and who has plans for you, plans to prosper you, to give you a future, and to give you hope. When you face challenges, and when obstacles seem insurmountable, do not fear. Stand tall, chosen one, knowing that God is with you. He is preparing you for something greater than you can imagine. The obstacles you face are not there to break you. They are there to reveal God's power in your life. Every obstacle you encounter is an opportunity for God to show himself faithful, to demonstrate his love, and to open doors that no one else can open. It is not by your might or by your power, but by his Spirit that these doors will open and you will walk in victory. Your dreams are not dead. Your hope is not lost. God is not finished with you yet. He is calling you to rise, to believe that what he has promised, he will deliver. He is calling you to believe that even when the path seems uncertain, even when the storm rages, he is your peace. Even when the mountains loom large in front of you, he is the God who moves them. Believe in the power of the one who holds the universe in his hands. Believe that the impossible is not just possible, it is inevitable, because with God, all is chosen one. I urge you to stand firm. Stand on the promises of God. Stand in the faith that he is not a man that he should lie, and he will do what he has promised. Do not let doubt creep in. Do not let fear steal your hope. When the world tells you to quit, when your circumstances tell you that it's over, remember that God has the final say. You are not defeated. You are not alone. You are chosen. And now I want to ask you if this message has touched your heart. If you believe in the power of God to transform your life, leave a comment below. Write 99 to declare your faith in the impossible. Let this be your declaration of trust in God, in his ability to make a way when there seems to be no way. And if you haven't already, I invite you to subscribe to this channel to join this community of believers who are standing together, believing that God is doing something mighty in our lives. God is on the move. His power is at work in you, chosen one. Your story is far from over. In fact, it is just beginning. With every step you take, with every challenge you face, God is writing a story of victory, of healing, and of restoration, and you are going to walk in that victory. So rise up today, walk in faith, and trust in the God who makes the impossible inevitable. Your breakthrough is coming. Keep believing, keep standing, and keep trusting in the God who is able to do exceedingly, abundantly, above all that you could ask or think. As we come to the close of this message, let us reflect on the profound truth that we have explored together. You are not here by accident. Every detail of your life has been woven together by a loving Creator who has a specific purpose for you, a purpose that extends beyond what you can see right now. We live in a world that often challenges our faith, that bombards us with obstacles and trials that seem insurmountable. Yet it is in these moments that we find the opportunity to witness God's miraculous power. It is in these moments that we can rise, not because of our strength, but because the journey of the chosen one is not a journey of ease. It is a journey marked by struggle, by resistance, and by facing the impossible. But it is also a journey marked by divine intervention, by breakthrough, and by victory. God has never promised that we would walk through life without challenges, but he has promised that he will be with us every step of the way. It is not just about God being with us in the good times, but he is especially present in the storm, in the fire, and in the darkest moments of our lives. He walks beside us when the path is unclear, and he holds us up when we cannot stand on our own. There is a profound and undeniable strength that comes from knowing, deep within our hearts, that we are not walking this journey alone. When we find ourselves struggling, weighed down by the burdens of life, it's easy to feel as though we're carrying the entire world on our shoulders. In moments of hardship, whether we face personal disappointments, failures, rejections, or any other challenges, it's natural to feel isolated, like we're the only ones enduring such difficulties. During these times, it can become hard to remember, amidst the overwhelming emotions and thoughts, that we are not in this fight by ourselves. The weight of the world can feel unbearable, and we might start to question if anyone truly understands the depth of what we are going through. But it's essential to remind ourselves that we are never alone. In times of pain, we may question God's presence or his purpose for our suffering, yet his word assures us that he is always with us. He has made a promise to never leave us nor forsake us, regardless of our circumstances. This divine promise is not dependent on how well we are doing or whether we feel strong or weak. Even when we are at our lowest points, struggling with feelings of failure, loneliness, or frustration, God's presence is constant. He is with us in every moment, in the highs and in the lows. His love is not conditional, and it does not waver based on the trials we face. The truth that God is always by our side, that He is for us and not against us, can serve as an anchor for our souls during the storms of life. This truth has the power to sustain us when everything around us feels like it's falling apart. When the world feels like it's crumbling and we are left feeling helpless or defeated, God's presence provides peace and reassurance. Even though the external circumstances may be difficult, the internal strength we gain from knowing that God is with us, that He is walking beside us, can give us the courage to keep moving forward. His unwavering love can carry us when we feel like we can't carry on, reminding us that our battles are not ours alone to fight. His promise to stand with us, to uphold us with His righteous right hand, is a truth that never changes no matter the season we are in. This truth, that we are never truly alone and that God is always with us, is the foundation upon which we can build our faith, especially when faced with the impossible. When the world around us tells us that our dreams are too big, that our goals are out of reach, or that the obstacles we face are insurmountable, it is this truth that strengthens us. It is this divine reassurance that empowers us to stand strong, to believe in the impossible, and to press forward with unwavering confidence that despite the challenges, we will not be defeated. Life often throws situations at us that seem hopeless, where the way forward appears unclear and where every step seems like it takes us further away from the promises we hold dear. It is in these moments, when doubt creeps in and the world's negativity threatens to drown our spirits, that we must hold fast to this truth, that God is greater than any circumstance. While everything around us may say no, God's power whispers yes. His promises are not bound by the limitations we see, and His love is not constrained by the difficulties we face. This truth ignites a fire within us, a belief that no matter what is happening in our lives with God, all the giants we face in our lives, whether they be challenges, fears, doubts, or obstacles, can seem overwhelmingly large and insurmountable. But when we stand before them, knowing that God is with us, we can look at them not with fear, but with, just as David faced Goliath, we too can face our own giants, knowing that God is on our side. It is His strength, not ours, that will see us through. The enemy may seem strong, but we are stronger with God fighting for us. We can stand tall, face what seems impossible, and have the courage to step forward with the certainty that God will make a way where there seems to be none. The world may say there is no way forward, but God has a way. He is the God of the impossible, the one who brings life where there is death, hope where there is despair, and victory where there is defeat. When all appears lost, He specializes in making a way where we see no path. The situation may seem bleak, but God thrives in the impossible. It is in the darkest moments that He reveals His greatest miracles. He is not limited by what we see, but rather He calls us to see with eyes of faith, to believe that He can bring life to what seems dead and hopeless. God's power is evident when He takes what is broken and hopeless and turns it into something beautiful. He does not discard our brokenness or our pain. Instead, He uses it to create something that testifies to His glory. In the same way that a potter molds a broken vessel into something beautiful, God takes the fragments of our lives and makes them whole again. What the enemy meant for harm, God uses for good. What seemed like an end is only the beginning of a new story of restoration, of healing, and of When we look back at our lives, we can often see how God has worked in ways we could not have imagined, bringing beauty from ashes, joy from sorrow, and hope from despair. It is His miraculous hand that works in the background, even when we cannot see it, orchestrating events and turning situations around for our good. The beauty of God's work is not always in the way things happen, but in the transformation that takes place. What was once broken is now restored. What was once dead is now alive, and what seemed impossible becomes a testimony of God's faithfulness. When we are faced with the impossible, we are called to stand firm in the truth that God is greater than any challenge, greater than any giant, and greater than any circumstance. We are called to trust in His timing, His methods, and His will, knowing that His plans for us are always for our good. We may not always understand why things happen the way they do, but we can rest in the assurance that God is working all things together for our benefit. His plan is always perfect, even when we don't see it at the moment. It is this unwavering truth that empowers us to believe, to hope, and to press on, even when the odds seem stacked against us. Our faith is not in our own ability, but in the limitless power of God, who can do immeasurably more than we could ever ask or imagine. It's with God, nothing is impossible. What may seem beyond our reach is within His grasp. He specializes in the impossible, and He has already paved the way for us to walk in victory. So let us stand tall, chosen ones, and face our giants with courage, knowing that we are not alone. Let us believe not just in the possible, but in the impossible. Let us trust in the God who makes a way when there is no way, who brings life to dead dreams, who turns hopelessness into hope, and who takes the broken and makes it whole. And as we face the challenges ahead, let us remember that we are part of a story far bigger than we can comprehend. A story of restoration, of miracles, and of the power of faith that moves mountains. With God, we can face the impossible and know that, in His hands, nothing is truly impossible. The world may define us by our past mistakes, our failures, or our shortcomings, but God sees us through a different lens. He sees us as His chosen ones, as vessels of His power, capable of carrying out His divine purpose in this world. We may not always understand why we have to walk through certain trials, but we can trust that God is shaping us, refining us, and preparing us for something greater. Every trial is a step toward fulfillment. Every challenge a part of the process of becoming who God has created us to be. And so we must not lose heart. We must not let our circumstances dictate our identity. We are more than our mistakes. We are more than our failures. We are more than the opinions of others. We are chosen by God. And that is where our identity is. The world may reject us, but God has chosen us. The world may tell us we are not enough, but God says we are more than enough in Him. And in His eyes, we are capable of far more than we could ever imagine. When you stand face to face with the giants in your life, it can be easy to view them as obstacles meant to break you down, to discourage you, or to lead you to defeat. But in reality, these giants are not just hindrances on your path. They are divine invitations, carefully placed by God for you to witness His miraculous power. Each challenge you face, each mountain that looms before you, is an opportunity for God to reveal the depth of His greatness in your life. The bigger the mountain, the greater the miracle. It is in the moments when the obstacles seem insurmountable that God's power shines the brightest. Think of the great heroes of faith in history. David standing before Goliath, Moses parting the Red Sea, and the Israelites marching around the walls of Jericho. These giants, these monumental challenges, were not meant to crush them, but to set the stage for God's glory to be displayed. In the same way, the giants in your life are not there to defeat you. They are there to highlight the greatness of God's power working in and through you. It's easy to feel overwhelmed when you look at the size of your trials, to feel as though they are too big for you to overcome. But it is important to remember that the size of the mountain does not determine the strength of the one who is with you. God is greater than any giant you will ever face. The trials you are going through are not a sign of defeat, but a preparation for victory. The tougher the trial, the more glorious the victory on the other side. It is when you face these giants with faith and trust in God's power that you will see His hand at work in ways you could never have anticipated. Every challenge, every obstacle is not just something to endure, but an invitation to witness a display of God's power. He doesn't want you to simply get through these moments. He wants you to see his miraculous work unfold in your life. When you stand firm, trusting that God is able to move mountains, he will make a way where there seems to be no way. Just as he has parted seas, broken down walls, and conquered enemies in the past, he will do the same for you. Imagine for a moment that you are standing before a giant, a challenge that seems insurmountable. Your first instinct might be fear or doubt, but in that very moment, know that this is an opportunity for God to show you the impossible becoming possible. When you place your trust in him, when you surrender your fear and doubt to his power, he will take what seems like an insurmountable challenge and transform it into a testimony of his greatness. God's ability to work through us is not limited by our own strength or resources. In fact, it is often in our weakness that his power is most evident. The Apostle Paul understood this when he wrote, "But he said to me, 'My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness.' Therefore I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me." 2 Corinthians 12:9. It is in our struggles, in our moments of uncertainty and weakness, that we are most open to seeing God's strength. When we are at our lowest, when the giants seem most overwhelming, that is when God's power is most perfectly displayed. In the midst of your battles, remind yourself that you are not alone. You have the God of the universe on your side. He has already equipped you with everything you need to overcome. The giants are not stronger than God, and neither are the challenges you face. It may seem like the odds are stacked against you, but God is the one who makes the impossible possible. When you place your faith in him, you will see that nothing is too big for his power. He can move mountains, heal wounds, restore what's been broken, and bring life to what seems dead. So the next time you face a giant, don't be intimidated. Instead, see it for what it truly is, an opportunity for God to show his power. The greater the challenge, the greater the opportunity for God's glory to shine. When you trust him, stand firm in faith, and allow him to work in and through you, you will experience victory in ways that exceed your wildest expectations. The giants may stand before you, but they are nothing compared to the power of the God who walks. But this requires a mindset shift. It requires us to stop looking at our circumstances and start looking at the God who is bigger than our circumstances. It requires us to stop seeing ourselves as victims of our circumstances and start seeing ourselves as victors, empowered by the Holy Spirit. When we begin to see ourselves as God sees us, we begin to walk differently, talk differently, and live differently. We stop shrinking back in fear and start advancing in faith, knowing that God is on our side. We stop looking at the impossible and start declaring the possible, knowing that with God, God's power is not limited by our understanding. His ability to move in our lives is not constrained by our finite perspective. We often limit God by expecting only what is reasonable, what makes sense to us in the natural realm. But what if we dared to believe that God could do more than we can imagine? What if we began to expect the miraculous, not just the ordinary? What if we believed that God could heal our brokenness, restore our relationships, and bring life to our dead dreams? Jesus said, "According to your faith, be it unto you." Matthew 9:29. This statement is both a promise and a challenge. It's a promise that God will move according to our faith, and it's a challenge to believe big, to expect big, and to walk in faith, even when we don't see the way forward. Our faith is the key that unlocks the miraculous power of God in our lives. If we have the courage to believe big, we will see big things from God. If we believe that he can turn our situations around, he will. If we believe that he can heal our bodies, he will. If we believe that he can restore our broken dreams, he will. Our faith in him opens the door for him to move in ways that we cannot even comprehend. But believing in the impossible is not always easy. There will be moments when doubt tries to creep in, when fear tries to take root in our hearts. There will be times when we feel like giving up, when the storm feels too fierce and the road ahead feels too uncertain. But in those moments, we must hold fast to the truth that God is faithful. He has never failed us before, and he will not fail us now. When the storm rages, when the path seems unclear, we must hold on to the faith that he who called us is faithful, and he will bring us through to the other side. There is power in standing firm, in declaring with conviction that God is able to do exceedingly and abundantly above all that we can ask or think. Ephesians 3:10. It is in those moments of standing firm in the face of uncertainty that we witness the power of God in action. It is in those moments that we see the impossible become possible, and it is in those moments that our faith is strengthened, our hope renewed, and our hearts set on the miraculous. So, chosen one, let us not shrink back in fear or doubt. Let us rise up in faith, knowing that the God who makes paths through seas, who brings down walls, and who raises the dead is the same God who walks beside us today. Let us believe that with God, all things are possible. Let us trust that he is working all things together for our good. And let us declare with boldness and confidence that we are chosen by God, equipped by God, and destined. Now, I want to invite you to take a moment to respond to this message. If you believe in the God of the impossible, if you trust that he is able to turn your circumstances around, I invite you to comment 99 below and declare your faith in him. Let this be your declaration that you are choosing to believe, to trust, and to stand firm in the faith that God will do what he has promised. And if you haven't already, I encourage you to subscribe to this channel, to join this community of believers who are walking in faith, believing for miracles and trusting in the power of the God who makes the impossible possible. God bless you, chosen one. Keep believing, keep standing, and keep trusting. Your breakthrough is coming, and with God, the impossible becomes inevitable.